or anything. You know, had
They're like,
nothing to
we're
do.
out of here. Here are
Right,
these guys.
right.
Bye.
So that was just sort of shit like that seems to happen, right?
Mhm.
Where you get all set up for something and then like, oh yeah, we didn't get to you today.
Yeah, but that sucks, for musicians because it's like, oh, I'm either gonna do my musician job or I'm not.
Right,
But if you're a comic and you're thrown in this situation that you were misled, you're like, oh, I'm gonna derail your whole fucking thing now because I can. You
right.
know?
So can you tell me more about what they said about it without getting like too specific or whatever, or just
I
like how it went?
I'll ask around just to get more details because, like I said, this was last year. But
Hmm.
I just remember like because I don't want to drop names, but they would get a handful of comics almost each day, and they would just have these conversations. But it was just mostly Mancow talking, and it was just like it was hard to get a word in and any of this. And he would just play up. He would try to get you to agree with his stupid shit and just like twist words and like all this weird shit. And that's why I was like, oh, I can't do this show.
It
I
sounds like
can't.
going on Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask around and I'll get some of the horror stories
Yeah,
because
that's
I'm
what I
sure
want to hear.
there's
Because I'm
yeah.
sure if you've ever you hear it on the radio and it's one thing, but when you see it on his when he had his TV show, you just see like the sort of the chaos of that whole setup. He's standing there with a microphone. He's always moving around, moving the microphone around, and like doing different shit. And people are all there's like a whole room full of people on a mic. Like
Hmm.
there's without a guest, there's like 15 people on the show.
Yeah, yeah,
And then he always has a woman that's like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't think that's right." He always has. And
yeah.
I
It
feel
works.
so
It works.
stupid for falling for it when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
you were 13. It's
Yeah, right.
okay. He's like, oh, he's
He
saying
says
vulgar
about
things.
dicks on the radio. You can't say that. That's
Like
funny.
Dick song. I love it. I still love it. Let's be honest with you.
Right.
But yeah, fuck Mancow and his shitty show. Uh, talking about music,
Yeah.
good music in a way. Last week we were talking about John Carpenter.
Yes.
Wes Craven had passed, and we were
Yes.
like, John Carpenter doesn't look great, and we had a good laugh, and we hope he lives forever. But John Carpenter was a composer, is a composer.
Right.
I didn't know this, and it really lifted my week because I was dicking around on Spotify and I'm listening to Halloween 3 and this John Carpenter shit, and it was like, oh, listen to this album called John Carpenter Lost Themes, and I was like, wait a minute, and it was like published 2014, and I was like, wait a minute, and sure enough. It's a fucking John Carpenter album of lost themes, things that he maybe was working on for other projects that fell through or whatever the fuck.
Is it real?
It's very real and it's great. There's like some of these tracks I'm like, well, this is gonna be in my rotation for the foreseeable future because this is classic John Carpenter awesomeness.
And do they reference at all like what this may or may not have been for or anything like
Not
that?
really. Some of the names are very like generic, like Vortex
Yeah.
and
Bad.
the Coming for You, or shit like that. But it's awesome. And if you're on Spotify, I don't know if it's on Pandora or whatever, but check that shit out. I'm only halfway through it, and I favorited almost all of them. There's like maybe one or two I was like good, but I like these other ones better.
Yeah, his music is so tied to the movies in my mind. Like I can't pull them apart.
And you would think that might be an issue where it's just like there's really no scene for me to attach this to. Like it's you won't get as immersed as a Halloween theme, but you kind of do. Like, oh, this is brooding. There's a lot of mood here. You can
Right.
picture like a dark forest or a weird, quiet suburban street. Like you can just picture that shit, and
Good
it's
music
great.
does that.
Yeah, and it's great. And some of the tracks are really long to the point where it's like I think this is two songs that he just kind of they glued them
Just
together, and
gonna
I don't
keep
get
going.
and I don't give a fuck. It's like, oh, he found this side of the synthesizer now. Okay, we're gonna play over here. But it's awesome, and it's John Carpenter's Lost Themes. Check it out.
I will check it out. It's yeah, when you I'm gonna touch on a little musical thing here, and it's gonna sound really weird, and I'm gonna sound like some weird hippie guy. But what music is bizarre to me because when I first started getting into Tori Amos, I would hear a song and I wouldn't even be really listening to the words, but the piano, the melody, I would have a feeling and it was so familiar to me but I know that it wasn't. I'd never heard the song before, but the song would remind me of something. And, you know, like a lot of people will talk about, oh yeah, I remember the first time I heard this song, and I have memories like that too, where a song will remind me of the first time I heard it. But I was like remembering stuff from my childhood just based on the feeling the music was giving me. And the music wasn't written at the time of that memory, you know?
But for some reason, it's just kind of
Yeah.
traveled through you.
Yeah,
and
like
ended up at a certain place.
Yeah, and I don't know why. Maybe it's like a familiar melody or something, but not really. You know, it wasn't like it was a cover of an old song or anything. It's just that music made me have a certain feeling, and that feeling was tied to a memory from a long time ago. It was bizarre. It's happened with other artists too, not just her, but that's the most vivid time that it happened to me.
Well, you know, music's supposed to make you feel. Art's supposed to, make you feel things, and it's good. That's why, like wrestling themes, I always love a good wrestling theme, and
Yep.
that usually does one thing for you, and that's what pumps you the fuck up.
Right.
It's not like here's that sad wrestling theme. You don't get a lot of that. Well, Mankind's was a little.
It's time to bring everybody down.
It's time to play the game.
Some of them were sort of like creepy. Like Kane's was sort of like scary sounding.
Yeah, you would get occasional scary one. Some fun ones where like, oh, we're gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
But it generally
like
it's
high
like,
energy.
yeah, pump you the fuck up. I recently, because I'm watching all these Metal Gear Solid playthroughs right now, and you'll hear some of these songs that are kind of corny but still good. And like, there's this one, "Sins of the Father" song where this is this lady and she's killing it, and it just really gets me not pumped up, but I'm like, man, I just want to do some stuff. It's just and it's kind of motivating, I guess. But yeah, music will do that to you.
I like picture scenes or like sequences of a movie or something, not an existing thing, but like I'll hear a piece of music and I'll like, oh man, this music would go great over something like this happening, you know?
But you don't. Are you involved in it? Because I'll hear something like that, and I picture myself like walking away from the burning building or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it. Yeah, it's not like, oh, it'd be cool like to see, you know, Bruce Willis doing this. Yeah, it's me or whoever. Like it's just sort of like a vague like, oh, a setting like this would go great with a song like this or this type of event. You know, yeah, I love music. That's one of the things that I've always loved about music is just the way it makes you feel, and it doesn't even. You cannot understand a word they're saying to the words sometimes, or it might be about something completely different than what you think, that type of thing, but just the song itself makes you feel a certain way.
Yeah,
I love that. It's fantastic.
and music can
is
be
great.
very unapologetic.
And since we've had my Mind Prison episode,
Oh yeah.
I've written like 7 or 8 new song ideas musically because I was working on lyrics for a long time, and then I was like, I got to start writing actual music now, and I was stagnating. I had like 3 things done, and then I just started burning through stuff after last week. Like I've done, I'm starting to get more stuff than I need for the whole album. So thanks. I think it's your fault, Dale.
Nice.
You helped
Glad
me
I
out of
could-
my mind prison.
Glad I could ruin that for you.
I didn't like being in the mind prison. It's not fun.
Get out of the mind prison.
It's hard. Like, I don't know how many people listen to this and have some sort of like artistic aspiration as well, but you know, it can be sort of overwhelming when you start to think about how there's so many people out here and they're all trying to do stuff. You know, everyone's fighting for just a little piece of someone's attention. And then you have to sort of like shut that out and just focus on what you do and making it as good as you can make it. But that little piece is always back there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always the fact that it's like, well, no one's out there making gym music.
That's true.
Only Jim can make gym music.
Yeah, see, that's how Dale looks at things. That's not how mind prison people look at things.
Oh, yeah.
When you're in a mind prison, it's all different, Dale.
Oh, I see.
But I'm breaking out. I'm seeing light.
Well, that's good. That's good. Was it like a solo album? We're gonna hear this
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah, it would just be me.
Okay.
Um,
I'm making you put it out there, so you have to. Do
maybe not. It wouldn't just be me. Like, it wouldn't just be me playing a guitar and singing. You know, but it would be my like. I would probably get buddies to play on it if I have any left, which I don't know if I do.
It'll be
But
Jim and the Two Strokers.
yeah, I have a plan. There's a plan in place.
Now you sound like Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
I have a plan.
Music finds a way.
It does. A couple show business things before we get on out of here.
Oh,
Max Landis is a screenwriter. He's the
yes.
son of John Landis, who killed that actor. And Max Landis wrote Chronicle. He's a big wrestling fan. I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with this guy, but he's such a character that I always end up following him on Twitter and all this shit. But he wrote a movie that came out this past week called American Ultra, which didn't do well. It was like some stoner spy movie with Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart,
Okay.
which right away you're like, oh, that's no wonder.
It's full of charisma.
Yeah, right. And it didn't do well. And this Max Landis, which I kind of like the guy, but he went on Twitter and just started making excuses. He pulled that Josh Trank, who's blaming everybody but himself, and I'm like, oh no, you can't do this. And I just wanted somebody in his family or an agent or something to be like, shut him down, shut him down,
Pull the
shut him
plug.
down. He's burning everything to the ground. Because he's just like, oh, we lost to a remake and like all these things. It's like, oh, I guess this is what America wants, huh? Okay. You know, like real whiny.
Oh,
And-
come on, dude.
And it's just like, even if you feel that way, which I wouldn't agree with, you can't do that. I mean, Josh Trank, which he worked on Chronicle, that was the director of Chronicle, which he wrote, and Josh Trank is the Fantastic Four guy who had the meltdown. And it's like, this just happened to your buddy. Why are you doing this now?
Oh, they're buddies?
Well, I assume they've worked together, so
Okay. No, I mean, okay, okay.
it's not like he's not aware of the Josh Trank situation. That's for damn sure.
Oh, right.
It's like you just saw somebody do this,
Right, one of your peers.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh man. But eventually he stopped. But of course, the 24-hour news cycle, media, celebrity shit. Of course, they're gonna get on it and be like, oh, Max Landis making all these excuses, and it's like, yeah, he did say these dumb things.
Now, what else? Has he had a huge successful movie? Or
Chronicle's probably
Max Landis?
the zenith for him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
And it's just like, you can't do that. Like, I complain privately about stuff like that. Like, oh, this fucking producer. Oh, Jesus Christ. But, I'm not on Twitter like, this producer's a real piece of work. It's like, no. That's what you have friends and family for. Then you go outside and you do the professional thing and you whatever.
you definitely don't criticize the public. You don't
Yeah,
criticize the moviegoers and say like, "Oh, my movie wasn't successful not because it wasn't as good as these other movies, but because people want a remake instead of my
Yeah.
movie."
Yeah, and he was just weird shots at things like, I guess people want more Thor 2 and stuff like that. And it's just like, why that one? It's just like all these weird
What?
things he said.
Did he say that? More Thor 2?
Something like that. Thor 2 was the example he used. And I was like, that was a
That's
a
not
weird
fair.
pull.
As like I said before, I'm not a professional artist or anything like that, but I write music and I play and I sing, I perform in front of people, and never once have I ever held it against someone else who's been more successful than me and like put it on the audience, like, well, these people are dumb if they're seeing this band instead of my band, or whatever. I always feel like
Yeah, that's true.
I always, whenever I go back and look at a performance or something, I'm always nitpicking what I did. Like, how do I make this better? Oh, I was off there. I was flat there. We screwed up this part of the song. And if people are gonna pay money or even come for free, they're gonna spend their time seeing me. I got to do this, and this better. Every time I do that, it doesn't matter if it's a show in front of 30 people. I go back and listen to it, and I say, oh man, that part was bad, that part was bad. Every single show, every performance I've ever had, I can do that with. And I never blame a lack of success on
You can't
people.
blame the room.
Yeah.
Comics still do it, and you shouldn't do it. You don't blame the room.
No.
He basically blamed the room. It was a screenwriter version of blaming the room. And what he did, because Josh Trank was like, oh, I had this vision, but they wouldn't let me do it. So he blamed, like the studio or whatever. And as you pointed out, Max Landis blamed the people.